Catherine Price here is our vice president, and she's from Connecticut. Recently moved to Lynnfield from Andover after teaching third grade.
First grade.
First grade for 8 years there. She took 2 years off to be home with her kids and is now just this fall back to school as a math tutor at the Summer Street School. So, and then Melissa Adams, in charge of membership, from Philadelphia, and she spent many years living out in California teaching third grade. All right. She's home during the day right now with her 2 kids and teaches classes at Pure Bar in the evening. And I'm Erica Wilson. I'm treasurer of Lynnfield Moms Group. I'm originally from Duxbury and moved to Lynnfield just a little over a year ago from Boston. Prior to having kids, I worked as a high school French teacher, and now I'm home with my 2 kids, and I do some part-time work for a local orthodontic practice. So we're all pretty similar here with our 2 kids and backgrounds in education, and we really just want to be part of the community, which is what led to the Lynnfield Moms Group.
Right.
So Lynnfield Moms Group, it's a social organization, as you said, for moms with children ages from birth to 6, and it was created to support local moms and connect families within the community. We offer members social events, family events, and play groups. As you said, we're about 5 months old now. We have close to 100 members and about 130 children now as part of our group, so we're really growing. Yeah, and the mission of our group is to enrich the lives of families with young children. That's both within our group as well as the community. And the first project we're undertaking is a fundraising campaign to update the existing playgrounds here of the 3 parks in town, Newhall, Glen Meadow, and Jordan Park. We've recently met with Selectman Crawford, who discussed with us the plans that are already in place for these parks. And we're really, really looking forward to being part of designing the new structures and helping out with anything we can. So due to the scope of this project, we're in the process of forming a committee with additional Lynnfield Moms Group members who have experience in both fundraising as well as grant writing. And we're also really hoping to look into a grant so that we might have a community garden at one of these parks. We're thrilled with what we've been able to accomplish in such a short time and looking forward to growing as part of the community here. In the next month alone, we're expanding to include community service, meals for members in need, a speaker series, and also a mentor group for new moms. So we're just looking forward to the future and being part of the community. We'd like to really thank you all for having us here and welcoming us.
You're very welcome. It's very impressive what
Thank
you're
you.
doing in a short amount of time, really. And I think you're to be commended for, what you do with the parents of young kids from newborn to 6. I mean, kids are so important to the town of Lynnfield, and the community just embraces children, and what you're doing with the kids and getting them involved and what you're planning to get involved in is just top notch as far as I'm concerned. So I just want to let you know how impressed I am and what a good job that you've done so far, and I think you're going to do a lot of good things for the town. So
Well, thank you very much.
look forward to seeing, your
we are.
activity and your projects. That's good. Anything else?
Well, we've already met a couple of times, and we've gotten together, and we've gone to a couple of the parks, and I actually gave them several brochures of equipment, but they've already done some of their own homework, and they've gone to other parks that they've liked. They've taken some pictures and brought me in some samples of different apparatus that they might like to see at our own parks. And of course, we've gone to both Glen Meadow and Newhall the other day, and we could see what we could add on and what we could do to improve both of those. And I think especially Glen Meadow,
Yes.
there's a very large area there of park space for the kids that we could redesign, and I think that's what they're aiming for right now, is that first project to get underway, and we find out what you want there, and then we can find out how we're going to pay for it, do some fundraising, and get that done. So it's going to be great. I'm really looking forward to it and working with you.
Well, thank you
Thank you.
very
Thank
much.
I want to thank you all for organizing such a group. This is great. I brought my children up here, and there really wasn't a group like that. And I think that having this really enhances the town. And everybody needs to take their hat off to you for taking your own time and putting a lot of time into this, as I'm sure that your families suffer a bit too as you're organizing this. So I'm sure there's many people that want to thank you for this. I also, we corresponded, Erica, and I did follow up with the DPW director. We had an hour-long meeting. I visited all the sites. I regarding your pictures. He went out and looked at the sites as well. And we had a lengthy discussion about the many things that he could do that really didn't cost a whole lot of money. There was one bench at Glen Meadow that was just surrounded with brush. There was no reason for that. So we talked about little things like that he could go out and immediately do to make the parks more user-friendly. We also talked about where some of the money might come from within his budget. There's one particular budget line that comes to mind, which is the funding for the turf track at the middle school. Since that track will be probably torn up within about a year or so, there's about, I think, $15,000 or so that he should be able to move, or we may have to vote to allow him to transfer or reappropriate those funds so that they could be used to help refurbish some of these parks. So there are other funding sources within our current budget that could help with what you need to do. So, along with your fundraising, which is, of course, really great for you to take the time to do that and any other ways that you raise funds, but we also may have some funds within our budget that could help ease that burden. So
That would be great.
we'll all work together on this to make this happen, because it's certainly a worthwhile cause. There's nothing we all won't do for our kids. So thank you very much,
Yeah.
all of you, from the bottom of my heart, for all that you're doing.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So thank you again. And if you don't mind, in the future, can we have you come back and sort of see how things are going? Would that
Absolutely.
be good? Okay.
Thank you for
All
having
right.
us.
Thank you each very much.
Great to see you.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay, next on the agenda is recommendations of warrant articles. So I'll just let Bill take over from here if he wants to go through them, please.
Sure. The first article is to raise and appropriate by transfer to pay overdue bills. We have 4 such bills, and they came in well after the close of the fiscal year, so they need to have town meeting approval by a 90% vote to pay them. In total, they're $1,902.83. 3 of the bills are DPW bills, and 1 of them is for a town computer.
Now, as we go through these, I guess we need to vote to recommend them or not, right?
Yeah.
Now, can we do 1 to 4
Sure.
and recommend those all together, or
It's up to you.
when
If you wanna
can
do
we
that.
Yeah.
What is number 2, 3, and 4? Is that all right on in the
2,
summary?
Article 2 is here, yes.
So 1 and 2.
And Article 3 is the insurance proceeds. You don't have
Oh,
the
there's
actual
no
figure on
Okay.
the
Right.
insurance proceeds, but, so Article 2, you'll see we're moving money from we're doing a number of things. We're transferring money to individual accounts within the existing FY15 budget, and we're funding them out of separate funding sources, which include existing appropriations in some cases, and then certified free cash and/or just general raise and appropriate articles in other cases. In return, with respect to the financing needs, you need to add to the town administrator's salary. This is not a pay raise. This is just to cover accruals and things of that nature in the transition between one town administrator and another. It's happening in the middle of a fiscal year.
Right.
And the money is going to be coming out of the Selectmen Other Professional Services line. We anticipated this when we put the budget together in the spring, but unfortunately it was in an expense line item as opposed to a salary line item. So it's just moving most of that money up to the other from the selectmen, other professional services up to the salary line item.
Could you explain that a little more? What's the accrual? Is there going to be an overlap? Is that why?
No, but at the end of my service, I'm entitled to be paid out for my unused vacation time.
Okay.
It's not a sick leave buyback. I'm not entitled to that, or personal time, but by law, you're obligated to pay me for my vacation time
Okay.
that I've accrued in the current fiscal year.
Mm-hmm.
And there may be some slight overlap. I'm not sure. It depends on when the new person would start. The second one is an amount of $11,550 is needed to fund the town administrator's search. The third one is general liability insurance. All of our insurance is in one line item. This particular financial need resulted from our police and fire accident policy being high, much higher than what we had anticipated last April when we renewed it in July. When we funded the Fields project last spring through borrowing, we weren't sure what the interest was going to be on the mid-year portion of the debt service on that. We knew we were going to have additional levy capacity in the fall. We decided to wait to get an actual finite number before we did an appropriation for that financial need. The half-year interest on the bonds that were sold last July will be $67,928.67. The way the bonds work is that you make a semi-annual interest payment and then an annual interest and principal payment. The first principal and interest payment, the first principal payment will not be until the FY16 fiscal year in July. It's a year after you borrow, but we do have to pay a half years of the interest on the full balance in January. So that is being appropriated. The next request is for a fire chase vehicle, and the appropriation request is for $10,000. The fire department has been utilizing a Ford Explorer that finally gave up the ghost after 258,000 hard miles. The engine is blown. Now, we don't need a new vehicle for this purpose. This is a vehicle that is essential when it's needed, but it's not a heavily used vehicle. It probably goes out once a day or twice a day, 3 or 4 times a week. And it is to allow the paramedic at the alternate station from where the incident occurs to chase the ambulance to provide services on the site with the paramedic. Because we have during the day we have a paramedic at both the central station and down in the south station, and sometimes they have to shuttle between the two. They are currently using one of our frontline fire engines for this purpose. They've been doing it for the last several weeks. This is a late-breaking need that has come up, and using a big pumper truck to just transport one individual to a scene is not really a good use of that. So I told the chief that I would make this request of you in town meeting to fund what will be a used four-wheel drive small SUV, something like an Explorer, similar to what they had to meet this need. Then the final request is for $95,000, and this is for the design and the site work at the King Rail Golf Course. The funding source for this is the Golf Enterprise Fund, retained earnings, certified free cash in the enterprise, which must be used for golf purposes. The aim here is to begin the work and get the site ready to reopen that golf course in the spring. The clubhouse will not be built until the balance of the funding comes through on the sale of the life land, which will have to be appropriated at your Springtown meeting. But the hope is to get that course open in late spring, and using a temporary building. But in order to do that, we have to construct the road, grade the site, and create the parking area so that golfers can park their cars and go out and play. So this is just taking the money, the surplus money that was earned by the enterprise over the last couple of years to supplement and to get that work done in a timely fashion to allow us to reopen King Rail Golf Course. Now, as far as the funding sources for those funding needs, at the top, you'll see that we're transferring from Selectmen other professional services. That's the $20,000 we anticipated we would need for the town administrator transition. So that is now going up into the town administrator salary line. These next two, the electrical inspector salaries and the plumbing inspector salaries, this is just moving money that's already in those two budgets. They are in salary lines, and they need to be in professional service line, because we are now paying those people through the town of Wakefield. So it's an expense as opposed to a salary line item. So we're just moving the money from an expense line into a salary line into an expense line to effectuate those payments to the town of Wakefield for their services. The next is additional appropriations. These are raise and appropriate sums of $90,478 to fund some of these things that you see at the top. We have gotten the new growth figures from the assessor's office, and we appropriated $800,000 in new growth in April as part of the town meeting process, but our new growth came in at $1,117,000. So there's $317,000 of additional levy capacity available for the, for appropriation. And we're proposing to use $90,478 of that for these purposes as outlined. And the $10,000 in free cash in the general fund, our free cash balance currently is $1,367,000. That was what we generated in free cash in the last fiscal year. And we're going to use that as a funding source for the fire chase vehicle. And then, as I discussed earlier, the certified free cash in the golf enterprise of $95,000 is being used to fund the golf work on the top. Because the free cash is certified by fund. There's a general fund free cash of $1,367,000, and then you certify free cash within the enterprise funds as well. All surplus revenue, which is actually retained earnings in the enterprise, stays with that fund, but has to be appropriated by town meeting to use for specific purposes. Similar to needing to go to free cash. If you want to use free cash that's been certified, it also has to be appropriated by town meeting.
So the additional appropriations, that $90,478.67, that's coming from the new growth that we didn't anticipate.
Right.
And it looks like that's going to cover the town administrative salary accruals and the long-term interest for the fields.
That's correct.
Okay. So we didn't have that in our budget, and we're lucky enough
No.
to have it in our.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we anticipated that our new growth in the spring was going to be much higher than we had put in there. We weren't sure how much, but, I was confident that there would be enough additional new growth to cover that debt service on the field project by a long shot. And that's pretty much what town meeting was told when the appropriation was made, that these fields would be financed out of Market Street new growth.
Mhm.
So we're doing exactly what we said we were going to do.
Right.
Well,
So,
I'd like to make a motion to approve
Oh, he's gotta go over number 4 also, why don't we?
Are we doing all four? or-
Okay.
Yeah, we
All
can
right.
do one to 4.
All right. Article 3 addresses the appropriation of insurance proceeds. I don't have the exact numbers this evening, but there are two we received reimbursement for losses in two areas. One, the DPW barn. The insurance company has paid us a significant sum of money to reimburse or to pay directly, in some cases, the costs of reconstructing that section of the barn that burned down. But since those reimbursements or those claim payments made to the town exceed $25,000, they need to be approved by town meeting before they can be spent. And we also received a significant sum of money. I think it's over 30,000, 25 to 30,000, on account of damage done to some of the equipment at the King Rail Golf Course. And that money is needed to replace equipment at the same place. But once again, it exceeds 25,000, so it needs to be appropriated by town meeting to allow them to spend it on new equipment.
Was the insurance proceeds adequate to cover the
Yes.
damaged equipment?
Yeah. And, along the way, we've, on both of these cases, we worked closely with the insurance company and gotten their approval before we've done any work, so that we don't get left with any balances whatsoever. I mean, and we just approved the contract for the reconstruction of the DPW barn, and we got specific approval from the insurer before we executed the contract. The next article is an article to add to the OPEB fund, OPEB being Other Post-Employment Benefits Liability Trust Fund. As you may recall, we put $100,000 in that fund against our unfunded liability for retiree health benefits. Under this, there being enough new growth to cover an additional appropriation into that fund, I recommend that we put another $100,000 into that fund at this time. I think over the course of the next couple of years, you will need to reevaluate the situation as to whether you want to add significantly more money to that fund. But I think it's important to get at least up to the minimum level of appropriation that allows it to be managed professionally by the state. And I think the minimum balance that you can have them manage for the town is $250. So after this appropriation, the following year, you'd put at least $50,000 in as well. Now, at least you know you're going to get the best rate of return on the investment of those funds. And it's not that our treasurer is incapable of investing those funds ably. Municipalities do not have the authority to engage in investments that involve equity securities, stocks, or mutual funds, or anything else. We can only invest in certificates of deposit and U.S. Treasury bills, which have extremely low rates of return. The Pension Reserve Investment Trust, they invest in a balanced program that produces returns of between 6 and 8% per year. So it makes some sense to get to the minimum balance to be able to realize those rates of return.
Do you think it would be in our best interest to increase the current year contribution to $150 so we can meet that $250,000 threshold?
That's an option. If you do that, you'd be required to more heavily rely on our accumulated free cash, because in addition to this 95 that the 90,000 in additional appropriations on Article 2, you have this 100,000, and one of the articles for the Fields project requires another 100,000. So between those, you're at 295,000. We have additional 317,000. You're getting awful close.
Yep.
Close. both.
Yeah,
Um,
can't do it.
So I would leave it the way it is and do it next year.
Okay.
So
So I'd
that-
like to make a motion to approve Articles 1 through 4 for the upcoming town meeting.
Well, we would recommend them.
Recommend.
Yeah,
them.
we're
We
recommending them.
Yeah.
Recommend
I'd
them.
second that we
So it's been
recommend.
moved and seconded to recommend Article 1, 2, 3, and 4. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Okay.
Articles 5 through 7 are petition articles. Actually, Articles 5 through 8 are petition articles. I see the proponent of Articles 5 to 7 is here. I can go through them if you would like, or you can,
You can go through them if you want.
okay. Article 5 addresses, well, it purports to repeal Chapter 127 of the Acts of 1993, and also Chapter 128 of the Acts of 1993. And these changes would would take many of the powers away from the town administrator and would also revert the town to an executive assistant form of government. Board of Selectmen, executive assistant, as opposed to a town administrator.
Right.
And there are, other changes that would require the department heads to report directly to the selectmen monthly, and present themselves to the selectmen and the public on a monthly basis to deal with complaints and things of that nature. Article 6 would impose a residence requirement on certain public officials, including the town administrator, town clerk, town treasurer, tax collector, building inspector, fire chief, superintendent of schools, police chief, and director of public works. I should note that this would not affect any current incumbent of these positions, but would rather be imposed upon any new individual who should assume one of these positions. And Article 7 would reinstate a consolidated personnel bylaw that was replaced by a newer bylaw. And this article would delete the entire current bylaw and reinstate the bylaw as it existed in 1983. And it's the consolidated personnel bylaw. And it's laid out in its entirety in the warrant, as it would read after the repeal of the current personnel bylaw and substituting this in its place.
So these, I think we should take one at a time. And Article 5, the main part of that one to me would be reverting back from the town administrator back to an executive assistant type of operation here in town. Now, under the executive assistant, how much did they have to do with control of the budget, or was the budget at that time more controlled by the selectmen? Mr. Maina used to be an executive assistant, but then we went forward and made him a town administrator, I believe. Is that correct?
Yes, he was made a town administrator, and he was also assigned the duties of Director of Finance and Administration. That was all part of the town administrator role from and after those special acts that were passed in 1993.
So I'm just trying to figure out why would we go backwards with this one. I don't understand that. I mean, it takes power away from the town administrator, which right now you have more oversight of the budget and things like that.
Correct.
A town manager, which you don't have the authority to do, has the capability of appointing directors without going through the board of selectmen. But the town executive assistant, I mean, was it more run by the selectmen? Which I don't think is a good idea. I mean, you need a consistency with a town administrator. You want to keep out personal agendas and issues of such sort that would just cause a lot of mayhem as far as I'm concerned. So that's just my opinion on number 5.
Well, I have a similar opinion. The town of Lynnfield's enjoyed the 2 very fine town administrators since 1993. Joe Maney was hired in 91, and 93 became town administrator and chief procurement officer. In 2002, of course, our current town administrator, Bill Gustis, was hired. And that form of government that we've enjoyed over the last 20-odd years is done very well for this town. It doesn't make any sense to go backwards. It has no place of, I don't even believe this article should be on our warrant, even though it had a petition, we had to let it on. It's insulting to the town. It's insulting to our town administrator. I don't believe, if it had a requirement of 100 signatures, you would have ever gotten it, but we've enjoyed very fine people working here. We're going to have, we are told by our research firm, we're going to have a very nice pool of candidates for the new town administrator for us to choose from. These people are all working in towns where they do the similar job that Mr. Gustis is doing. We would expect that we would hire somebody and keep the town running like it is. It's one of the best run towns in the North Shore. We've always been in the black. We've been proactive. We have no reason to change the type of town government we have here, and I don't believe that the townspeople would be benefited at all by doing this. It has no beneficial characteristics to the town whatsoever. So I think I would strongly not recommend this Article 5.
And there's one other point I wanted to make. If you look at Standard & Poor's, I mean, they list a lot of things about why we went from a AA to a AA plus with our ratings. And Lynnfield economy is very strong. The town's budgetary flexibility is very strong, with available reserves and levels improving over the past 3 fiscal years. Lynnfield's debt and contingent liability profile is very strong. And the one I really want to focus on is they view the town's management conditions, which I take as the town administrator position, the department heads, the boards of selectmen, and all the people that do good management practices. They feel that under their fiscal management methodology with their assessments, we have a good town. We are financially run very well. Any other form of government to me, and I made some notes here, such as the passage of this article, would only serve to turn Lynnfield backwards. It would weaken our fiscal strength. It would weaken our public school district. It would weaken the morale of our employees. It would erode town infrastructure and bring undetermined personal agendas and political gains to those who would be in control over more than what our town administrator does right now. This will prove to be severely detrimental to the town over several years and place us on a path of no return, as far as I'm concerned, and would require major monetary concessions to recover, if at all. So I really don't approve Article 5 at all. So Tom, you got some comments?
Yep. I think, first of all, the gentleman, Mr. Walsh, is here that obtained the signature, so thank you for coming. One question before I actually comment. How many signatures do you actually have for this warrant?
For this particular one?
Right, could you go to the mic,
Apologies.
please?
When we thought there was some confusion over the signatures, we made a massive effort, of course. It wouldn't be legal, and not everyone would sign every article, but we did, in fact, get more than 100 signatures. just for whatever it's worth.
So, okay, so you,
Came out to 104 all told.
okay, so, and you did that in how long?
Well, other than the 10 that were already in, that took us about 36 hours. You confirmed it for me about 1 o'clock on Saturday, and we did pretty well on Sunday.
Okay. So it was rather short order. So I think that there is a calling for this by the people. My personal opinion is different. I think that when people take the time and effort to bring forward an issue, it should be heard clearly by all of us. So I certainly would be, I guess, in the only position that would be in favor of allowing this warrant to come through, so that your opinion and the 104 other people that signed that petition, they could be heard. Whether it's approved or not, that's for the town to decide, not for me to decide. Okay? But I do believe that you should be heard. As far as actual management styles, I differ than my brother selectman. I think we should be more hands-on. I think our current town administrator and the prior town administrator have done a great job. Nothing negative to say about them, towards them, and they should not take this in any way as a negative statement. I think what they've done is excellent for the town. However, I am a hands-on person, and I do like that approach for me. That may not be everybody's flavor, but for me, I agree with that. But I more importantly think it's up to the town to come forward to town meeting and vote yes or no. Not for me to say you don't have the right to. So, in my opinion, I think you should be heard.
Your article will go to town meeting because it is petition. That's not what we're talking about. That's going to happen because we have no control over that. What I'm talking about is the Board of Selectmen recommending or not recommending the article, because that will be stated at town meeting once you have had your discussion and town meeting decides how they want to do it. But to have 3 selectmen with different opinions try to run this town with an executive assistant would cause total mayhem, in my opinion. So I'm not for this, and that doesn't mean your article is not going to go to the town meeting, because it will. So,
You know what, Mr. Walsh, you know what this makes me think of is a lot of corporate America is driven by a board of directors who then have a hierarchy of executives that work under their control. And I sort of seems that that's what we're doing here in our town. We're the selectmen, and we hire, whether it be a town administrator or a series of executive assistants, whatever it might be. We have our hierarchy, which will then move our opinion. They will work towards that goal. Our opinion is based upon the taxpayers who contact us, make recommendations to us, vote us in, and vote us out of office. So I think if we do a good job, they vote for us. If we do a bad job, they don't vote for us, and we don't return if we should want to run for re-election. But I think the important thing is that around the world, that it's not so simple as handing the keys over to one individual, that I believe that in our situation, 3 selectmen have been voted upon and nominated as selectmen, and we're entrusted to run the town, and that we should bear that responsibility. Much like the board of directors get voted on every year by all the shareholders. So I think that, in my own humble opinion, that this is a worthwhile warrant. It's worthwhile discussing, and I welcome the town's comments.
yeah, and I don't agree with that. And I'll tell you one thing, Lynnfield, you do the right thing at the right time when you come out to vote, and I think you'll do the right thing with this type of article also. So, is there a motion to recommend this? I'm going to move this along, I'm sorry. I'm moving this along.
I move that we do not recommend Article 5.
You're not going to take any comments, huh? That's interesting.
It's been moved, and I second to approve Article 5. All in favor?
Oh, we're going to not recommend Article 5.
No, you're recommending to recommend Article 5.
No, I am not recommending Article 5.
You're not
I
recommending?
move to not recommend
Okay,
Article
not recommend Article 5. I second that. So all in favor, aye.
5. Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
Aye.
So it's 2 aye not to recommend it, and 1 opposed to recommend it. Okay, Article 6. This is the one that deals with the
With the residency requirement.
residency requirements. And here again, my opinion is, and it's going to go to town meeting because it is a petition article. But I think this is something we don't want to do. Okay? We allow and have allowed good people to come into town and do good, excellent jobs. I mean, there's top-notch people that live outside of Lynnfield. And I think a good example of this would revert back to the Danvers town manager search, where I think, and we'll get into this a little later on in this meeting, but we have some good, competent people that are put in for Bill's position, and they're from out of town. And we wouldn't have got that if we had a residency requirement. Here again, I just think it's not a good thing to have residents, to say that everyone that's a department head or a director or a school superintendent has to live in the town of Lynnfield. I just don't think that's the right thing to do. This is another article to me that would put Lynnfield backwards. We're trying to move forwards. Any comments from the other two selectmen?
Well, I think the whole nature of a residency law has a negative impact. Like the Selectman Nelson said, they had trouble getting the type of candidates that we are getting for our town administrator because they have a residency law in Danvers. I think you have to hire the best qualified person for the job, and you don't have to require that he live in town. All right, it's not, you're trying to find the best person for the benefit of the town. And residency doesn't have to be that way. We have, you have a list of 10 department heads here. We have 1 department head that lives in town. You know, and there's no reason why the other ones would have to live here. We have good department heads, they're very well qualified. We've done a nice job filling the new positions. They live close enough where there's not an issue getting here. We do have public safety requirements where they have to live within a certain distance, which makes sense for them to respond to any public safety issues. But as far as living in town, I would not recommend that we enforce any kind of residency laws. And I also talked to the Secretary of State's office about your bottom paragraph here, Michael, and they didn't feel that complies with the state statutes. They felt this was in contradiction to some of the of what the state requires. So, you know, I don't think that would pass muster anyways. But other than that, we have the process isn't described here on how you would monitor it. Anybody that's accused of not complying with this law has to have an open meeting, basically have his day to be heard. We don't accommodate that, and then we don't even touch the area of unions and the union issues. So that there's a lot of holes in this, anyways. Even if residencies wasn't such an issue, but I would again not recommend we recommend this article.
Mr. Terranova?
Article 6 is interesting. In the past, people wanted key management to have a vested interest in their town. I grew up in Boston, and much larger city, obviously, than Lynnfield. And when I was young, they instituted a similar policy. However, that was many moons ago. Today is much different. And I'm not sure on the long-term ramifications of our staff, given the high values of our homes in Lynnfield. That's, for me, is a big stumbling stone. I like the concept. I like the buy-in concept. The issue that I have, the legalities of this can all be worked out. That doesn't concern me at all. What does concern me is the threshold financially for someone to buy into this town is rather high. And given what we want to pay to try to keep our taxes under control, it makes us an oxymoron. It's how do we keep our payroll where we want it, keep our values going in our properties going the way we want them, up, and up, and try to keep our taxes under control. And it's kind of tough for this situation to work given the communities that are around us and the value of homes in those communities. We were fortunate enough with our new fire chief. He moved to the next town. And financially, can you blame him for what he's going to pay there versus what he's going to pay here? He has to work in accordance with his own personal budget. So he made a financial decision to move within the required mileage parameters, but in a town and in a property that met his budget. So for me, that's the problem with this warrant. If we had some lower priced homes that someone coming in who may be earning $30,000 or $40,000 could afford, then I'd have a different opinion. But it's tough when you have people coming in and starting out a starter home, maybe $400,000 or so. If they don't have a significant amount of money saved up, how are they going to overcome the issue of getting a mortgage? And there's not a whole lot of rental property. If you're going to go rent in Market Street, you might as well get a mortgage. You know, so I do have a problem with this warrant.
So,
I make a motion that we do not recommend Article 6.
I'll second that motion.
so it's been moved and seconded not to recommend Article 6. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Article 7, that's the one that deals with the bylaw. Go back to the 1980 bylaw.
Yes.
Here again, I don't understand why we currently have a bylaw since 1980 that has incorporated a lot of different things as we've progressed through time, and some of that is union agreements and stuff like that. Can you go through over some of those bills and be taken away from? Here again, it's another step backwards, I see, as far as I can see.
Well, it does not address some of the state and federal legal changes that have taken place since 1983. Most notable would be the Family Medical Leave Act. It's in our current bylaw and didn't even exist in 1983 when this prior bylaw was instituted. There are also issues related to in the current bylaw, there's language that that excludes employees covered by collective bargaining agreements. This bylaw does not do that. And as a result, it creates a conflict between the bylaw and collective bargaining agreements that have been negotiated and agreed to by the town.
And that's fine. I mean, even those things right there are, to me, is, why would we want to go backwards with this bylaw? I don't understand that. We have one in place. I mean, maybe it needs to be looked at along the way, but any other comments from?
Well, again, I reviewed this with the Secretary of State's office, see what has happened since '83, and they do admit that this is so old that it doesn't comply with most of the current laws that are in place today. In particular, our privacy laws and our work environment laws doesn't take into account the privacy laws we have on personal information, sexual harassment, handicap discrimination. There's several things in there. Our town administrator mentioned collective bargaining, but there's also the grievance process that we go through when there was an issue. Many of those things that we handle today weren't within the old consolidated bylaws, and many things are illegal today, the way that the workplace environment is structured. So, again, it's a bylaw that you want to change. I don't know why. My thought is there's a small group of individuals with a personal agenda here that are trying to get this through. There's no other reason to do this. Why would you step back 30 years and try to change everything? It doesn't make any sense, especially things that are illegal and things that are archaic. And I don't understand the reasoning here. And there's no place for this really in our town. And I obviously don't want to recommend this article.
Mr. Walsh, could you come to the microphone, please?
Certainly, sir.
Could you tell me how many signatures that you received for this warrant?
Again, for all three, it came out to 104 if you include the original 10. Not everyone signed every article. I don't have a specific total for this particular article.
Okay. Would you have a problem if you were to go through this warrant article to call out what might be illegal? I'm not an attorney. You are. Maybe you could go through this and maybe call out what is inappropriate and add language that would be more appropriate and bring it up to the current times of in legal jargon?
As I would be happy to do that, although as you gentlemen are well aware, the warrant confines our ability. The moderator would have to find any amendments of that kind to be in order for it to have any effect. I'm more than happy to accommodate.
Okay. Could you tell me what was your purpose for seeking this warrant?
I have recently had cause to carry a number of cases to the Civil Service Commission and have studied that system thoroughly. And it was actually really somewhat impressed by how it works, both its flaws and its downsides. The primary purpose of this article, a lot of it, as you mentioned, is not up to date. Fortunately, those state and federal laws take precedence, so it really doesn't matter what the words in the local bylaws are. But the primary reason to do it is to change the decision maker in personnel matters. It substantially revives the personnel board with the idea of creating a neutral group of folks who aren't hopefully political. It would, as mentioned, sort of take some of the HR authority away from Mr. Gustus's successor, with the hope of creating a neutral, non-political board so that you could have a neutral, fair and merit-based administration of government services. The idea being that we would take the entirety of employment, promotions, or anything of the kind outside of the politics. It dovetails a little bit with the other articles to try and empower you gentlemen to make all the decisions you need to make. And at the same time, it would shunt some of that HR authority sideways into the personnel board, hopefully with a professional HR director to follow on in April, if it were to succeed.
Mr. Walsh, I got a quick question for you. I have a copy of the petition article that you signed here.
Yes, sir.
It has 10 signatures on it.
Yes, sir.
Okay, you had mentioned there's 100 and some signatures.
Yes, sir.
Where are these other signatures?
They're in my car. There had been you will recall that there was a small kerfuffle about whether or not there was 10 or 100, and so Mr. Terranova had suggested that we go out and collect signatures in that intervening weekend between the time the emergency meeting was posted and the time the emergency meeting came up, and we gathered, all told, about 90 signatures.
Okay. But the three petitions you filed at Town Hall only had 10.
The legal petitions only have 10, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Gustus, could you tell me why did the town move away from a citizens personnel panel and transition over the responsibilities of that board to the town administrator? Would you happen to know that?
Well, it occurred before I came aboard. But in my conversations with the prior town administrator, Joe Maney, he told me that it was done because being a volunteer board and meeting only periodically, that the whole world of personnel had gotten so complicated that it needed almost daily and, immediate attention at all times. And even when I came to work here and the new personnel bylaw was in place, the personnel board was still in existence. And I did meet with them on a regular basis, although their role had been reduced to an advisory role as opposed to a decision-making role. And I did engage them in the whole process of collective bargaining. I met with them. I told them what the collective bargaining strategies were going to be. Received input from them. They provided input to the selectmen. And I actually asked them to participate in the collective bargaining sessions. And they broke it down. One person would take one union, another person would take another union. We would go to those meetings together. But it was not practical because all the collective bargaining and all of the personnel decisions happened during the day. And this was a volunteer board, most of whom had full-time jobs and could not meet during normal work hours or conduct collective bargaining or anything of that nature. So they quickly decided, no, you're doing okay, we'll just let you do it. And they didn't continue, and over time, they didn't want to serve on the board anymore. And we've not had a regular personnel board for the last 5 or 6 years. Recently, you did try to fill it,
No
but
takers.
but frankly,
We got one.
right. But but the role of the personnel board under the current bylaw is merely advisory. They don't have any authority, and it's very difficult for a citizen board to conduct collective bargaining. Extremely difficult for that to happen, and I think just as a practical matter, that was what it was. So I would agree with Mr. Walsh that if you go back to a situation where the personnel board was making personnel decisions, it would not be long before you would need to hire another full-time employee to act as personnel director to do the work that the personnel board would not be able to do themselves. So instead of having one person do both of those roles, now you would have 2 individuals. It's a question of budgetary efficiency is, would be compromised in doing that.
Mr. Wall, in your travels, and I guess to both of you, in other towns, what are you seeing other towns doing with this, with personnel boards or no personnel boards?
I mean, in my experience, more towns and even smaller towns now are going more towards professional management. That being town administrators, town managers who combine the administrative with the financial and the human resources functions consolidated under one individual.
Mm-hmm.
And if they don't have that, they have a HR director under them, probably the town administrator.
Yeah.
I mean, there's many towns that have that also.
Well, there are many towns.
Goes back to that added employee here at Town Hall that would be doing that, so.
Well, that's true, but I would say that the trend is more towards creating town administrator and town manager positions than is going back to what was clearly, a pretty common practice 30, 50, 40 years ago. There are some towns that maintain a personnel board for the purposes of addressing reclassifications of individual positions. But usually they're only non-union positions, and that would, and it doesn't really include department heads either. So their roles, even in the communities where they still exist, the number of employees that they control are very small. It's because they don't function well in the collective bargaining, and the selectmen never want to give up the authority to set salaries and agree on contracts with the top management professionals working for the town. So there's nowhere at this point that I know of has a personnel board that is responsible for all personnel decisions that are made.
What do you think about Mr. Gus's comment?
It's reasonably on the money. The primary reasons that if you wanted the personnel board to bring it back are that it would make sure that decisions were, when finally decided on and announced, there would be a specific forum for public input. It would be done in public in the press, in front of everybody. And more importantly, it also paves the way for, as mentioned earlier, a full-time HR director. That to the extent that that's a lot of responsibility to heap onto administrator, obviously under the charter, you gentlemen are empowered to pick all the top department heads, and no bylaw could change that. But to the extent that lower positions would be subject to the personnel board and through them the clerk of the personnel board, it creates some public efficiency. Well, I would argue that it creates some public accountability, I should say, not efficiency. But it also creates this neutral board, as we mentioned, the grievance procedure. This literally almost essentially takes the town administrator out of the human resources and puts back in the personnel board, and as we all know as a shorthand, a full-time HR director in that slot. And it gives you a sort of a neutral board that if there are any employee disagreements that can be distributed or answered rather than having to take it to Boston through some kind of civil service commission. I don't think we've ever had any issues going with the Division of Labor has a joint management labor committee that is functions similar to Civil Service Commission. The Personnel Board could adopt all those functions and prevent us from ever having to do that. They could provide employees with a sense that there's no political interference. I know you gentlemen had some issues with the last article because you were afraid that a political board is going to enforce its policies on town government. This is actually kind of sort of flips it on its head, and it shunts the responsibility for employees that are not major department heads sideways into what we hope is a non-neutral board. While it would be a public board and it would have an HR director that worked for it, we certainly hope that it would take some of the politics out of administration and promotion.
In your history, would the HR responsibilities fall onto a payroll clerk?
Primarily, yes. That I believe under the bylaw, I believe that responsibility actually falls to the personnel board to decide how they want to do that. But it clearly is, at least in my mind, it makes sense to hire a professional HR person to make sure that you can keep someone's eye on the ball in terms of this great, complex, growing law of personnel law and employment law. You mentioned them all. You gentlemen know these issues better, or if not as well as I do. So we certainly get it. I think that this enables us to have a full-time HR director to try and minimize litigation costs. It provides some public break and accountability on any kind of union increases or anything of the kind. It provides unions themselves with an assurance that it's not going to be political, that it's going to be strictly merit-based. But that is, again, that depends on the composition of the personnel board. When you get it, you can get good boards and bad boards, and this is, as far as I can tell, the best system that can be designed to try and promote a neutral administration, but it's not perfect.
So in your, since you have three different warrants here presented, one is to change from a TA to an executive assistant. The executive position, what would the compensation be for that type of a person?
Rough numbers off the top of my head, I believe Mr. Augustus makes approximately around 180, and if you split that down the middle, you can have two $90,000 a year salaries. To gentlemen in your position and with your experiences in life, that's probably a little low. To someone in my position with my experiences, it's kind of high. It would allow you to go out and recruit someone, hopefully in the middle of their career, who would have all of the requisite training experience and have done it once or twice in a couple of different places. In terms of an executive assistant, obviously it requires less knowledge. Well, I shouldn't say that, but it doesn't demand as much as the town administrator position. It primarily separates out the political responsibilities of a man or person, to enforce the will of the board, and then it takes the number portion, the Division of Finance Administration, and blocks it out separately, so that you gentlemen get strict administrative guidance. It kind of separates the political from the administrative, to the extent that that's a good idea.
So you will more than likely be going through all this at town meeting, I would think.
Most certainly, sir.
So I would like to move this along.
My apologies, sir.
I'm not taking any comments on this, okay? So is there any motion not to accept this or to accept
I make a
it?
motion not to accept this article, please.
I'd like the town to vote for it.
I'll second that motion. So all in favor not to accept it, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
Aye.
So 2 not to recommend it and 1 opposed.
Article 7.
That's Article 7. Article 8. Residents in the vicinity of Sparhawk Drive, Lynnfield, Mass. Request to have the intersection of Sparhawk Drive and Walnut Street closed due to constant cut-through traffic and U-turns. This has caused a public safety issue. To see if the town will vote to abandon the public way at the corner of Sparhawk Drive and Walnut Street. Well, here again, this is one of those articles that I do not recommend that we do.
The petitioner's not here? No?
The petitioner's not here. I see that this is a possibility of diverting all the traffic to Blue Jay. Another issue is if it was blocked off as a cul-de-sac, doesn't explain how that would be done, but is there any safety issues with fire trucks trying to get over curbs or anything like that? So I just think I don't agree with it. That's my opinion.
Well, yeah, you're pushing the issue down the street, whether it be towards Blue Jay on one side or to a already busy Salem Street intersection. Again, it's something where it just doesn't make sense. I think there's plenty of people that live up in those neighborhoods that are not in favor of this, and they would, it was just I believe a few people towards that end of the street that would want this, because they do have people turning around, they do have people cutting through. We've known that for years. It's been going on for a long time, well before the development over there, and we've addressed that with our signs. We've put some new signage over there. We have some a little better police presence there to police it. We've given the signs some teeth on the last vote to enforce with our police force, and I think they've done pretty well. I haven't gotten nearly as many complaints. I don't know if we've gotten any feedback from Chief Breen, but I think we should let that see how that does. And I think the trucks that are going down there have been cited. They've been stopped. Many have been warned. We've spoken to the Market Street owners and developers and continue to remind them to remind their vendors not to use that way. So I think, again, this article to close off, a popular area and a nice street right off of Walnut just doesn't make any sense.
I think after spending some time with the petitioner, Mr. Casoli, and actually being there and watching cars making U-turns, even while we were standing under the no U-turn sign, that I'm not so sure that I could say for myself that the signs are being successful. As far as the real issue here and moving it down the street, I think what the big issue is, Sparhawk is just a very wide street. And it just says if you need to make a turn, this is where you're welcome to make it, because it's so easy. The street looks like it's got to be 50, 60 feet wide. It's just enormous. So if you have a problem, it's very easy just to duck in real quick with your car, turn around, and head the other way. Of course, you got to negotiate the traffic. Whereas Blue Jay, a little further down the road, as compared to Sparhawk, looks like it's about half the width. Not as appealing to someone looking to make a quick U-turn, because you're going to have to pull down the road and actually make a 3-point turn. So, with that being said, and after speaking with Mr. Casoli, and he explained to me that he has talked to many people in that area, and they are in favor of this. I, of course, think that the warrant should be going before the people, and I think we should recommend it. So I'll make a motion that the board recommends Article 8.
I'll make an alternative motion that we do not recommend Article 8.
And I'll second Selectman Crawford's motion. So we have one motion to recommend it, and all in favor? Okay, so we have one not to recommend it. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Okay, so 2 in favor of not recommending it, and 1 for recommending it. Article 9 is the Donovan House, Center Farm. So, I think we accomplished what we wanted to do with purchase of that home. I think we sort of preserved the historic feel of the center of Lynnfield. I think this is an option that came before us. I know there's been discussion of 2 years to look at things, and then we did come up with that. We did talk about that, but this came before us, and it's something that is in a very short window. I think that the town should not be in the business of selling real estate. I think if this happens to be what it is and what I'm seeing from someone that's interested to buy it with deed restrictions and live there as a single-family home, that's sort of a win-win situation to the town. Anything other than that, I think if you wait 2 years or you start getting into what you want to do with it, could cause a lot of financial liability. So that's just my opinion. I think Article 9 should be recommended.
Well, Article 9, I believe we purchased the home last Friday. Was that the closing date?
Yes.
Yeah, so we do own the house now, and having this discussion with many of the boards and many townspeople, the first comment I had from most people was the most sensible thing to do is to put some deed restrictions on it and resell it. It'd be very difficult to make it a municipal property. You'd have to change it drastically, which is what we're trying not to do. And whether or not there's any other good alternative uses of this property, I don't think anything came out at the forum they had that really sparked any interest. So I think it's a good, we had promised the townspeople we'd bring this forward at a town meeting to vote on, and this presents itself now, and we will, we'll be able to do that and let the townspeople decide if it's a good choice for the town. So again, I would recommend Article 9.
I think that when we initially purchased the property, the townsfolk was very concerned with what was going to happen there. There was a possibility of subdivisions to other quote-unquote McMansions popping up real quick in the center of town, and maybe, challenging the size of the Donovan home. So it looked like by the town acquiring the property, we avoided that issue. And during that time, a lot of people stepped up and really had concerns with what could be built there. So we addressed that issue by placing deed restrictions on the property. Then there were issues regarding the historical significance of the property. And I believe in the requests for proposals, there's a restriction for historical details of the property to be maintained, and for our historical society, or is it committee? Committee? Commission would have input on any construction that might happen to the property by the possible new owners. So it looks like we created a situation where we protected the property the way the townsfolk wanted, and if we keep it, what is it that what are we going to do with it, and what will it cost us, which could be cost prohibitive. So it seems that the best thing to do is, if being so fortunate we could break even on the sale, that we should sell it with the appropriate restrictions that the townsfolk wanted. So it would seem to be a winning situation for everybody. So I'd like to make a motion that we support, recommend Article 9.
I'll second that.
So it's moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Number 10. Drainage pipes and systems under the high school turf fields.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, this article would appropriate the sum of $100,000 to deal with the unforeseen problems with the pre-existing drainage at the high school. The sum needed to cover the costs of repairs to pipes that in some cases were as old as 50 years old when the original school was built is about $100,000. This was not part of the initial plan. It was assumed that the drainage system was intact, and in fact it was not. So this money is necessary to cover the costs of fixing those pipes, because you do not want to have to dig up a turf field. So it was absolutely necessary to do that work. And this will be funded out of the new growth.
I saw firsthand what was going on over here with these, and it was amazing that a good amount of these pipes underneath the ground. And that's, if you've ever been down to the fields in the last 20 years, you realize why it's so wet back there, because the water was not draining properly. There was a lot of breaks, and these are older pipes from the 1960s and 70s, and there was a lot of subsurface work had to be done just to get those repaired so we could start working on the actual fields project. So it was absolutely necessary, and like the town administrator said, we don't want to be ripping these up later. So
No. We put a lot of money in the turf fields, so we need to make sure that they're just taken care of. And this,
We certainly need to make sure that we move the water away from the school and to where it needs to go. And obviously, after investing some $9 million, that we certainly don't want to have to tear up that excellent investment in that property. So I'd like to make a motion that we recommend Article 10.
second?
moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, Article 11
Yes.
requests an appropriation to fund 100% of the project costs of renovating and redeveloping Jordan Park, contingent upon the award of a park grant and the reimbursement of up to 56% of all project costs. The total cost of the project would be $740,800, of which 56%, or $400,000 would be, or up to $400,000 would be eligible for reimbursement, and it would also, this article will authorize the treasurer, with the approval of the Board of Selectmen, to borrow the entire sum and to use the grant to pay off a portion and to go long-term debt on the balance.
Let me take it.
Sure.
Again, this is a grant that I worked on with Kevin McHugh from the Fields Committee. It's For the Jordan Park renovations, the Jordan Park's the only park in town that qualifies for the park grant. Part of that would be significant renovation to the park, parking area and drainage under that area. We would expand it from approximately 38 parking spaces to 101. It would help alleviate a lot of that traffic that's out on Wildwood and working its way down Pillings Pond and all over in that area. Again, they have to, we applied for this park grant back in June. We were hoping to have an answer by now. They've told me we aren't going to have any final answers until the end of October, early November. So instead of going to a special town meeting afterwards, the way that the state recommends is that you do that at your October town meeting, get an approval contingent on the okay of the park grant, and then you can move forward, and the project could be done next summer. Again, the 56% reimbursement would make us eligible for the entire $400,000. A town like the town of Lynnfield is a long shot for these grants. They're primarily for the inner city and small and larger towns that would have more than one park. We've never applied for these grants in the past, but I have had the park grant director come out and looked at the project, and she's seen what we want to do, and she thought it was definitely worthwhile to apply for this. So we're hoping, it's all based on how many other towns apply for it and where we end up in that pecking order. So again, I'd like to see that article move forward and be approved at town meeting, and then we'll find out in a few weeks if we get approved for the park grant. And again, if we somehow don't get approved this year, I'd like to apply for it again next year, because it's the biggest grant they give out for this type of work, and I'd like to see the town take advantage of the $400,000 if we can. So I hope we're lucky enough to get it this year, and this would cover a multitude of improvements at Jordan Park, which I believe everybody that goes up there would agree is vastly needed.
Yeah, I agree with that, because I think Jordan Park is very heavily used. I mean, it's a very important part of the youth athletic program in our town. So I think since we're doing this with the high school, the middle school, and all the different other parks that we're going to deal with, I think Jordan Park is one of those that does need to be updated and taken care of also. That's my opinion. So
In reading this article, is it out of the $800,000 that we're going to spend on all of the parks renovations, we're going to spend $740,800 at just Jordan Park?
No.
No.
This appropriation would be in addition to that 840.
So in addition to the 800,000,
Yes.
we're going to look for 700,000, for which we'll get 400,000 reimbursed.
That's correct.
possibly.
Correct.
Yes.
So where does the other 300,000 come from?
That would be an additional borrowing in addition to the 800,000 that we're already committed to doing.
But if you don't get the grant, we're looking at the 740,000.
The way this is worded, if you don't get the grant, the entire appropriation is contingent upon getting the grant.
So no grant, no
No
project
grant,
at Jordan
no
Park.
project.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay, so, but then the taxpayers were promised that with that 800,000, that we would solve a lot of these problems at these different fields around town.
And I think that's remains the intention, but in speaking with the Fields Committee, when they put the list of projects together and arrived at the $840,000 worth of additional work that will be done in the other parks, they did not put Jordan Park as part of that $840,000 because it was their intent to apply for this grant in order to do whatever repairs were
I
necessary
recall
at
that was
Jordan
stated up
Park.
front when they were.
Yeah, there was detail on what the parks were being renovated and what the details were on the 840,000. This had to be separated out. This has to be a separate appropriation voted at town meeting in order to qualify for the park grant, and you have to accept the park grant. So that's why this needs to be done this way.
So where in this article does it say if we don't get the grant, we won't start the project?
It says,
Fourth line from the bottom.
yeah, it says, and to raise and appropriate,
Okay.
transfer or borrow the sum of $740,000 to defray 100% of all project costs of renovating and redeveloping Jordan Park, contingent upon the award of a park grant to the town by the State Division of Conservation Services for reimbursement of up to 56%. So, no grant, no appropriation.
So then what happens with Jordan Park? How are we gonna do anything there?
Well, this is a multi-year renovation project. We're gonna do probably 3 different summers. We're gonna be working on the different parks, because we have to, you can only do one area at a
Right.
time, so you can use
So you could
the
put this off
existing
towards the end.
renovations to work, to play on for the summer, and then we work on the next section. So this coming summer, we're gonna work on probably Glen Meadow and Newhall, where we've already appropriated those funds, and do some work at the middle school. And again, if we don't get this grant, I would like to apply for it one more
Right.
time,
Mhm.
because it's,
Sure.
there's about an $8 million pool of money, and you have a shot of getting, if not the whole grant, maybe some of the grant.
Mhm.
And then we could, if we had to, we could scale down some of the renovations, but I'd love to do at least the parking lot renovations, because the parking issue down there is the biggest issue. The field renovations are needed, and, but if anybody's been to Jordan Park lately, it's been getting beat up because of the extra use it got over the summer, because of all the work done at the high school. So it'll need some renovations there that we're probably gonna do anyways,
Right.
as part of the initial funding. But I would love to see us get this year. Again, I would, if we don't, I'll reapply next year, and then we can determine after that what we'd
So
like
we
to do.
have some options.
Yeah, we have options. We have options.
Phil, is the plan that is put together, is that on the town's website for everybody to see?
I believe it's on the Fields Committee,
Fields
Fields Committee
Committee
website, yes. You can see all the parks and
Great.
what we had planned.
So, is there a motion for Article 11?
I'd make a motion where we recommend Article 11.
I'll second that, since we're not gonna be raising taxes.
Been moved and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Article 12 would make 2 minor changes to the Planned Village Development District, the PVDD, or the 40R bylaw, so-called, to add 2 additional prohibited uses in the zone, one being adult uses, as defined in Section 8.5.2, adult uses definitions, and number 16, medical marijuana facilities as defined in Section 8.7.3. This is to cover the fact that the general zoning bylaws, the adult use bylaw and the medical marijuana facilities bylaw in the overall zoning bylaw do not apply in the Planned Village Development District by the terms of the Planned Village Development District wording for applicability. So this just closes the loop, because it was clear that the intent of the town was that these 2 bylaws would apply everywhere in the community and not be excluded by the 40R bylaw. So this would just make those uses prohibited in that zone.
Which is a good thing.
This seems to be very simple, no-brainer, so. I'd like to make a motion that we recommend Article 12.
I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded to recommend Article 12, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Article 13 further restricts adult uses under the regular zoning bylaw. Upon looking at our existing bylaw, there are significant setbacks from residential areas and other restrictions on where these types of retail uses could go. And I think everybody believed that it would only be allowed in the down on Kimball Lane in the commercial district. But upon further review, instant replay, or whatever you want to call it, it would appear that given the existing definition and setback requirements, it would have been possible for one of these facilities to be located somewhere along the Route 1 corridor. I don't think that was the intent of the bylaw when it was passed initially. This will correct that situation. It keeps the existing setbacks from residential properties in place, but makes it abundantly clear and very clear that it is only allowed in the commercial district, subject to those setbacks in the bylaw.
Again, this is a common sense change.
All right.
I don't see any issues with it. I'd like to recommend I'd like to move that we recommend Article 13.
I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded to recommend Article 13. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
14.
Article 14 is, will delete our entire existing wireless communications district bylaw and replace it with the bylaw that's in the warrant. Planning Board worked on this bylaw for many months. It is far more comprehensive than the existing bylaw, and I think that it has been drafted to take into consideration the changes in the law relative to the siting of radio telecommunications facilities that have been implemented at the state and federal level. My review of it would be that it provides the town a little more flexibility on where these things may be sited, but also imposes additional processes that applicants who would like to erect these facilities have to go through to get a specific type of technology approved. And there is a pecking order built into this where the preferences are laid out for the least visible solution all the way up to monopoles, if that appears to be the only way to get the coverage that the applicant needs to provide uniform service in the community. I think it's an improvement over what we have now, and I know that the Planning Board has vetted it quite extensively, and they are happy with the wording of this bylaw. Special thanks to Mr. Dressios, who was here this evening and had quite a bit of input and actually worked on putting this draft together.
Looking through this, I agree with Bill. This proposed Article 14 bylaw is very well done. I think they did a great job in doing this. And I think it's a good step in the right direction for the issue that it covers. So,
Again, Alan, if you want to come at the podium, Alan, I did have a question for you. But again, you did a tremendous job on this. Really, congratulations on it, and thank you for doing the work. I mean,
Thank
I
you.
went through it. It really is in the best interest of the town of Lynnfield. I don't think there's anybody that wants a 150-foot tower unless it's absolutely necessary, unless they can prove it, and unless they have no other good alternative for it. And
Correct.
that's what this does for us. So I
And we-
appreciate you spelling it out. And there's one part in here where you mentioned about us getting stuck with the remnants if they abandon it. Is there any provision we can get for them to put a security up?
Yes, there's a bond
Yeah,
issue in there.
They can put that in there, and they would be on the hook for that?
Presently, it's in there, right.
Yeah, okay.
Now,
Yeah,
a lot of this is up to enforcement by the zoning board of appeals.
Yeah.
I mean, they've got to do their job now. First, they have to read through it and stay awake long enough,
Well, I got through the first 5 or
because
6
I
pages.
fall asleep all the time with it.
But I think it addresses most of the concerns that you've probably heard and that you had yourself and that the planning board had. But I've had many people email me and talk to me about the
Good.
wireless communication towers and the federal law gives them a broad brush on where they can put them, but at least it gives them the reason to do a due diligence to make sure that there's no alternative, and they have to be able to provide us some evidence that that has to go in that location to cover a dead spot that they have, and they have to be able to show us that. So I think this is a very good revision to our existing laws, bylaw. So thank you.
So all inputs are welcome, and the planning board will have a public hearing on this next Wednesday night, the 15th.
Wednesday night.
Right, so, and we take into consideration those comments. With something this large and this complicated, there's got to be some errors in there somewhere. So all inputs welcomed.
I want to thank you, Alan, for your hard work. I know you, at those meetings, all of you on the planning board work very hard.
Right.
But, you saw we went round and round with this bylaw in the past, and I commend you for stepping up and taking on, you and the board taking on such a big challenge.
Yeah.
And coming up with a very comprehensive and inclusive plan of how to deal with an issue that no one really wants to have to deal with. So you've come up with a solution that makes it as palatable as we can for the public.
Right.
So, thank you very much for that. And it also creates a bit of a constructive flow for the applicant to follow, so that the avenues of trying to place a tower where only they choose and maybe the townsfolk don't choose, it looks like you placed some handcuffs on them. So, thank you very much for that, and for the many people that I spoke to about this who didn't want a cell tower in their backyard. I'm sure that they want to thank you as well.
Okay, great.
So,
We're doing what we can. We looked at a lot of federal cases and tried
So
to...
do you know what's happening at the federal level? I mean, there was some discussion about them just taking total control and no input from municipalities.
Correct. That's been around for a while.
So it's been around for a while.
Yeah. And maybe someday they'll succeed with it.
But until then, this is a good.
Right.
this is good.
The latest
Yeah.
effort has been to restrict the amount zoning board of appeals could ask for review fees to $1,000. You can't get anything done for $1,000.
Right.
So that's the latest and greatest
Nice.
from the applicants.
Well done, Alan.
Thank you all.
Thank
So
you.
I'd like to recommend Article 14.
I second that.
So it's been moved and seconded to recommend Article 14. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Next is Article 15, and it would be to accept Pizzuti Way. I don't believe that we've had final sign-off on this road by Conservation, and I'm not sure whether the Planning Board and the Highway Superintendent. So if you could put off your final recommendation on this until the night of town meeting, I think we will have more
Okay.
information
So
by
we have to
then.
make a motion to table.
I move that we defer to town meeting.
Yeah.
I'll second that.
Been moved and seconded to defer to town meeting. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 16. Canvassers,
Yes, this
solicitors.
is an article that was put together by the town clerk and the police chief to address the issue of the licensing of canvassers and solicitors.
Mm-hmm.
And this will require them to go through the same process as peddlers and hawkers have to go through, which includes the extensive fingerprinting and all the rest of that that's required. The one thing I will say, though, is that we received some feedback from town council on this. And religious and political canvassing cannot be regulated in the fashion allowed under this bylaw. So there will have to be an exception in the motion that is made, accepting out canvassers who are practicing or soliciting for both religion and or political purposes.
What about kids going door to door to raise money? I mean,
They would need to, it depends on what they're doing it for, I think. If it's a nonprofit entity, I think it is also exempt from this.
Well, typically you'll get the football team or whatever sports team.
LAA.
Yeah,
You know, some are nonprofits, some are probably not.
right.
So I would think we'd want to see some provision that allowed them to still do that.
Okay.
So I know that in speaking with Chief Breen, there's always seems to be an issue with people soliciting and having appropriate ID and going through the proper channels. So this is certainly a worthwhile article. So I'd make a motion that we recommend Article 16 with the exception of nonprofits, religious, and political organizations follow this rule.
What about the school fundraisers and things?
That's the nonprofit.
Yeah. Okay, I'll second that.
So it's been moved and seconded with the exceptions as identified. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Bill, for clarity, does the nonprofit, that qualifies
Yeah,
as the
this
school?
qualifies, yes.
Okay.
Article 17 deals with dogs, and I think it would be appropriate for you to have a little conversation with the town clerk about this before before town meeting. She's going to also be talking with the with the finance committee about this bylaw. There's some issue that needs to be addressed relative to the size of a residential kennel and whether they're allowed in the town, and the fees for kennels. And I think you might want to hear her out before you make a recommendation on this, so if you could defer until before town meeting on it, it would probably make some
That'd be
sense.
probably a good idea.
Okay, I move that we defer Article 17 to town meeting.
I'll second that.
So it's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And finally is Article 18, which is the scenic road bylaw. In conversations with the town moderator, he informs me that he has spoken with the petitioner of this bylaw, and that it would be her intent to seek to indefinitely postpone this article at town meeting.
Do we need to hear from her, or?
Well, I didn't speak to her personally. I'm going on what I was told by the moderator. So, once again,
We'd have more info by our meeting prior to
Yeah, why
town
don't-
meeting. So
I'd make a motion, we defer to town meeting.
I'll second that.
moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
You got a better idea by then?
So that takes care of the warrant articles.
Do you think we could announce to the public when town meeting is?
good idea.
A lot of important articles on there. Could you announce the date, Mr. Nelson, to the public?
I was going to do that at the end, but I can do it now if that's what you'd like me to do.
I know it's.
October town meeting is October 20th, and it's at 7:30, is that correct?
Yes.
I know on our site it says 7 p.m., but it's 7:30, so October 20th, 7:30, Lynnfield Middle School. October town meeting, Lynnfield Middle School, 7:30, 10:20. Please come.
Thank you.
Okay, next on the agenda is update on town administrator search.
I spoke with Mark Morse of MMA Consultants today, and he has provided a list which I have forwarded to you, the names and in current positions of all of the applicants for the position. At this stage, I would urge you to keep them confidential. In the preliminary process, most applicants expect confidentiality. I mean, that expectation only goes so far, though. Once, if they made it through to be finalists, then no more expectation of confidentiality. But in general terms, I'm told that it's a very strong field with at least 18 professionals who hold positions as the chief executive officer in either a city or a town, both in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, New England, and several from out of the region even. He intends to do all of his vetting. He's begun some vetting of the candidates, but he will be looking at their credentials, qualifications, and should be prepared to, to present you with a recommendation of finalists at some point, middle to the end of next week. And I think at that point, we can discuss where we go next.
Well, from what I understand, that when he presents a group of finalists, or at least his top 10, they need to sign release forms before we can start doing any announcements or vetting of who they might be.
Correct.
So we need to get clearance before we can do anything on our end.
Thank you. We are moving along with that. Okay, last on the agenda is an update on Pearly Borough property.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, I have to recuse myself from this part of the Selectmen meeting. As I posted on my Facebook, I had a prior professional relationship with the owner of Pearly Borough, as I disclosed in my disclosure notification. So I will make, to err on the side of extreme caution, I will not take part in any Pearly Borough discussion. So if you could just come get me once you're done with your discussion.
It's regarding Pearly Borough, it's my understanding that a complaint for contempt against the owner was filed on the 6th of October, is that correct?
Yes.
And the court issued a summons, which was that issued on the 7th of October?
Correct. And there's a hearing scheduled on that complaint for contempt.
This Friday at 2
Yes, tomorrow
in Lawrence.
in Lawrence.
And that's
Now-
for the judge to decide maybe how to proceed or what will the next
Yes.
steps be.
Yes.
Okay. So we are making progress. Mr. Mullins moving right along. And I know that I've made a commitment to keep Pearly Borough on our agenda for every meeting, so I'm just giving an update to those who are wondering what is going on. So it is moving along. May not be fast, but it's moving.
Yes.
Any other comments on Pearly Borough?
No, but you'll be surprised what somebody will do when they're faced with going to jail. So I hope he acts accordingly, because he's been playing games with us for about 6 years, and it's about time I'm happy we got to this point, and I'd like to see something done, because that's probably the biggest thorn in our side right now is Pearly Borough, you know, in the entire town side, and what to do with that property. So I'd like to see us moving forward on that.
And the time has come and gone for him to take the permit for removing the tanks. I mean, that's been a while, so.
Well,
And no one's heard a thing?
well, I heard a rumor late today that he may have spoken to the fire department, but I have not, it was after hours, I was not able to confirm whether it is true. But it would not surprise me that he would do that in anticipation of having to go and face the judge. It will buy him another 60 days, before which he must remove the tanks. But he was obligated to get that, file for those permits last week, so he's still not in compliance with the judge's order.
Right.
So the hearing will go forward regardless of whether he has talked to the fire department or not.
Okay.
And I can't confirm that he has at this point.
Do I understand that that town council is also going to go to the judge and ask for an assessment of damages for his fees and costs to the town and reimbursement of those?
I think as part of the contempt proceeding, he will do that, because it's willful misconduct on the part of the offended.
Okay. So, Mr. Terranova, if you can hear me, you can come back for adjournment.
I hope he can't hear you.
Excuse me. We have come to the conclusion of our meeting, so there's only one thing to do.
I'll make a recommendation that we adjourn.
A
Okay.
second?
Moving second to adjourn, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Good night, everybody.